So here I am in front of the house. I'm going to pick some more hops. Now, as you can see, some of these are getting to the point where they're not really usable. You know, like that. That's a little bit too dry. We don't want that. However, these, there's nothing wrong with that hop right there. That is a beautiful little tiny cone. It's a beauty. It is. Cool thing is right now, I'm actually drinking on a Marvel Pale Ale. So this right here is done exclusively with these hops from last year. So one of the cool things is I donated a shit ton of these hops to Collusion Tapworks in York, PA. And they went ahead and used them in their Harvest Ale, which they brewed earlier this week. We picked them on Saturday, which was cool. And here's some footage from that. Find it.
Yeah, these things are, they're pretty together.
I never said I was the smartest hop grower.
Hey, as long as you have fun with it.
That's what I'm going with.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, right? Cut these guys here. Smaller. There you go. This is typically the way I'll do it. I'll run strands out and then just grab a chair and
Yep.
sit back and rock and roll. There we go. One, last one. I'll wait until you pull that free. Cut away. There we go. There's one. All right, success. So we cut down from there. Phew.
See another one over there?
7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, not the 7 C's.
Not the 7 C's now.
7 something else.
See, what is it? Cascade, Centennial, Fuggle, Northern, Magnum, Hallertau, Chinook. I'm surprised I can even remember that, to be honest. Oh my God, they're slacking.
It's a flavor of love.
I don't know what 16 ounces looks like.
That's about a half an ounce.
Good.
They look good.
Yeah, it does, man. Yeah, because we're only picking
These all came off of, I've been redoing these year after year after year off the roots.
Oh, sweet.
So these are, even though these are only 3 years old out front, they're off the same roots as the 7-year-olds on the side, which means they produce well year after year. So, and I just keep multiplying them. I don't know why. I don't.
No, you got it down. You got it down. I know what this is.
Oh yeah.
Chinook, baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you can recognize any of them,
Oh yeah.
that's even better. Now what I'll do is I'm just going to pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go back through and grab what you want, or however you want to work that, that's up to you.
I'm gonna pick the ones that I know. And
Gotcha.
then once we're done with that, we can just start picking the ones that I don't.
Gotcha.
And mix all those together. That way, at least I can have kind of an idea
Yep.
of alphas and that kind of deal when I'm using them.
That makes perfect sense.
And then all the ones that I don't know, we'll just go back and pick them and throw them together and call them the blend.
Call them the Marvell blend.
There you go.
What was that picture?
So, were you a home brewer before you got into all this?
Yeah, I mean, I started brewing, home brewing in about 2010, I guess. And, you know, typical scenario, Dad buys a homebrew kit for son for Christmas or birthday kind of deal. And he got me one for Christmas and used it 3 different times and hated it and said, I'm never doing this again, this sucks. 2 months later, I said, you know what, let me go ahead and try it again, and ended up doing a Hefe that, well, I'm sorry, a Dunkelweizen that turned out, well, probably at the time, pretty shitty, but I thought it was great. So I was like, oh, you know, let me keep on going here. And,
It might be on to something now.
might be onto something. And yeah, I mean, and I was working at a Blues restaurant and pub out there in Lancaster,
Right.
in Columbia, and the owner would let me brew in his basement of the restaurant.
Oh, that's cool.
He had a secondary kitchen down there that I just got to use whenever I wasn't working, which, to be honest, I'd basically come there and brew during the morning, and then close down the restaurant at night, and I was doing that 3 or 4 days a week. And yeah, I was doing 2, 3, 4 beers a week, like 5 or 6 straight months. I mean, I was working out there at Mr. Steve's at the same time.
Oh, I didn't. You were
Before he
working at the
shut down.
store?
Yeah. Yeah, I was teaching all their homebrew classes on Saturdays and worked out there at that store, and then I worked at the Lancaster one for a bit and did that for a couple months before everything went down. Well, I left before everything went down. But yeah, I mean, I was doing that for a bit and got to make a
One of my favorite food is that
whole bunch of different ingredients and made a whole bunch of different beers all the time. And within, I guess, just shy of a year, I had made,
the guy's mom,
you know, 80 or 100 different beers.
celebrated like.
So I was doing stuff all the time during the day. So, you know, at the same time, I was going to school for engineering, and my dad realized very quickly that I didn't like engineering as much as I like making beer.
I see a trend
Yeah.
starting here.
I had already been 3 years at Penn State, so I didn't want to do another 2 or 3 years. So I ended up doing the whole Siebel thing. And,
So did you do Siebel Germany?
yeah, it was the first year for the Master Brewers program.
There's
in
not that many,
2011.
so you went the whole way through it then?
Oh yeah.
Wow, you're one of few then.
There's only 40 every year that get to do it, so in 5 years now, I guess, you know, there's only 200 of us. I went through the whole thing.
I was like, oh yeah, you like take college? He's like, no, hate him. He's married.
It's funny how, what's bizarre with these plants is as you go, like when you grab a hold of one of these, you have no idea the vine, and you start to go through, and if you get a couple of vines together, you'll see the difference in the hops.
Oh yeah.
She always like consists her phone like now. Yeah, she was
And I have to wonder, I mean, are they, at some point, do they cross-pollinate?
like I'll tell them when I like cat and then
I mean, not typically unless you splice rhizomes together.
so they know what you're gonna wear.
What if when they're planted so closely together like I have?
Well, that's why, not typically, however, depends on what kind of environment they're in, you know, it depends on what their stress level is.
Right.
Sometimes they're just like,
Just a little foot thrown out
fuck it,
without
I'll find the
like,
closest thing I can find. Call it a day.
My house, my
Right.
food. Yeah, that's what she said.
Now I'm mixing Cascade Columbus, or Cascade Chinook.
You see the difference? Which, in my opinion, that's a great mixture.
Absolutely.
I think those two hops need to go together.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Chinook is just so good.
Earthy.
Oh, oh man, it smells like hops over here. Oh yeah, yeah, you guys are you're getting a good bunch here.
So yeah, the guys and gals from Collusion came out and picked some hops, took them off, and they did some brew. Did a harvest ale with them. It was fantastic. Me and Jared, had an opportunity to sit out in the driveway here and
have a pretty cool conversation about brewing, beer, where the industry's going, and the whole 9 yards. And then I turned around and, you know, with that whole brew day, donated all these hops to their beer, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do an SJ version of a harvest ale. So I was brewing that with the Harley Davidson Owner Society, which is a local motorcycle club. Great group of guys, digging craft beer and home brew and the whole 9 yards, and so they're loving all that. You know, the homebrew side of things. They stopped out, and we had a good day at the grain bill. I brewed up a harvest ale. My version of a harvest ale is a little bit different than a typical harvest ale, because a typical harvest ale is you literally go from pick to pot, where I didn't do that. You know, I picked, but mine sat in my yoast for a week, and then I brewed with them the next day. I wanted to get rid of some of that vegetal part of the hop. When you do a wet hop, you get a lot of the green ness from the hop, and I'm not a fan of that. So I wanted mine to dry out some, so that you know, it was more, I get more out of the hop that way, which is cool. And worked out great. I mean, it really had a good brew day with that one. And we also did a stout, a oatmeal stout. So we literally brewed 20 gallons of beer on Saturday, which isn't bad. I mean, it was an 8-hour brew day, and we did 20 gallons of beer. So, yeah, I mean, we made the most out of a brew day, which is cool. So it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. Huge thanks goes out to Rich and Chris and Mark stopped in, and all the dudes from the York area Harley Davidson Owners Association for stopping in to Grainville and supporting us. Very well. Very cool. You guys are welcome anytime, that is for sure. So I'm going to finish this beer, and I want to get back to picking some hops, because I ain't done with these rascals yet. I got plenty of beer to brew off of these.